If you're watching one video for kale, one video for cabbage, and a third for Swiss chard, you're making seed starting way more complicated than it needs to be. These 4 crops like the same soil, same light, and almost the exact same timing. Today I'm going to show you my 1 tray, synthetic-free method to start cabbage, kale, Swiss chard, and collard greens. All at once, with no leggy seedlings, no dampening off, and transplants that are ready to go out before our last frost dates. Let's set this up step by step. My last frost date here is April 15th. These are cool weather crops. I want them in the ground about 3 to 4 weeks before that, around late March, so they can grow in cool soil and shrug off the frost. That means I start these seeds in mid-February, giving them relatively 5 to 6 weeks of indoor growth before we transplant them. I'm using standard seed cells. If you're reusing your trays, this part's important because we need to clean them. Old soil and fungus spores are the #1 killers of seedlings. I use a hot and soapy water and a vinegar solution on my trays at the end of season and at the beginning of season. That double tap, I don't know how much it actually helps, but I like to do it just in case. We're going to be using a super simple seed starting mix that we essentially make ourselves here. What I do is I take 12 quarts of Fox Farm Happy Frogs, run it through a sift to get all the big chunks out, and then I also use 3 quarts of worm castings in there as well that we sift to make sure we don't have big chunks of that in there either. We don't really have to worry about fertilizers right now because the seeds actually come with everything they need inside there. Once they break surface and start germinating, we'll add light fertilizing to it, but other than that, we just leave them be. Before I ever fill my cells, I like to add 3 cups or a quart of water to the bottom of the tray to do bottom watering to let the water start moist wicking up to the top. And then after I fill my cells, I like to take 2 fingers, push them down lightly, and then mist the top. We're not going for concrete and we're not going for fluffy, just gently firm. All 4 crops follow the same basic rules. Make a shallow hole in each cell, plant about 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep. And for the brassicas, collards, cabbage, and kale, I like to drop 2 seeds per cell, just for a little cushion there in case one's a dud. Then we'll gently cover them and mist them really good with the spray bottle. Swiss chard is the oddball here because it's not a brassica. It's actually a beet, which I did not learn until last year. This big quirky thing is actually multiple seeds in a cluster. If you plant 2 or 3 in a cell, you're probably going to end up with 8 fighting for the exact same space, which is really going to hinder them. When it comes to Swiss chard, we want to do 1 seed per cell, and if we absolutely have to, we'll thin them out later. Now, the part that makes or breaks your seedlings is it's going to, of course, be light and movement. As soon as you see those little loops break the surface, that light needs to be as close to them as physically possible. I like to keep mine at about 4 inches. If they have to reach for the light, they are going to stretch, and that's what's going to make them actually leggy. And then they're going to bend over, they're going to break, whatever, and then they're toast. Next is what we're going to call the gym in nature. Wind constantly moves the plants, and they respond by building thicker stems. Indoors, it's dead still, so what I like to do is I put my oscillating fan on them, and I set that sucker to high, and I let her rock. If they look like they're moving too much, I turn her down a little bit. Sometimes I even turn on the actual oscillating feature, so that way it moves it back and forth. If you don't have a fan, just walk by them, gently brush across the top of them every time you walk by. We also have ours by the back door, so every time the kids come in and out, it helps. Just that little bit of stress is actually going to tell the plants to bulk up a little bit. The silent killer of seedlings is actually something called dampening off. I've battled dampening off since day 1 of the garden. I will get it down with some plants, and some always will just end up with dampening off disease. One of the big things I found that helps the most is, of course, bottom watering. That's why whenever I do every start of seeds, I put the 3 cups in the bottom of the tray itself. I put it down, put the actual cells in the bottom watering tray, fill it up with dirt, barely miss the top, punch my holes, put my seeds in, cover them, mist it again, and then I leave it alone. I don't need a humidity dome, and I don't need to water consistently every day. I just watch it and make sure that it's not overwatered, because overwatering really messes up these seedlings. What is dampening off? It's actually a fungus that essentially is at the ground level where the stem is poking out and it just sits there and pinches that seedling off slowly but surely until it just falls over dead. And one day they'll look just fine. The next day they'll actually just done for. And actually, another add-on to dampening off, you can actually have dampening off and never see the seedlings. So what happens is that fungus does the same thing to the seed. The seed will start to germinate, and as it germinates, that fungus actually attacks it and pinches the seedling off. So you don't even know you're fighting dampening off disease until the whole tray is dead and you're like, what happened? And there's no real way to tell that that's what caused that seedling to not germinate in the first place. Our best defense without synthetic fungicides is, of course, how we water. And if you ever see a little bit of white fuzz starting on top of the seed starting mix, go ahead and just sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on top of there. It actually works as an antifungal agent, and it's organic. And I will say, as a disclaimer, cinnamon does help, but it's not a full treatment. I'm actually getting ready to do a full treatment video here in the next couple of weeks for fungus gnats, dampening off, essentially all soil-borne pathogens. I'm going to try to help remove because we're getting fungus gnats pretty bad. Once these are stocky and well-rooted, the work's still not done. It's actually just starting. Because these plants have been living a cushy indoor life, we're asking them to go out into the wind, cold, sun, sometimes before the last frost date. Specifically, these 4 are going out before the last frost date. Here's my 10-day hardening off crash course. Days 1 through 3, we're going to take them outside, find somewhere shady in your yard, out of the wind for about 2 hours. Then bring them back in. Days 4 through 6, we're going to add a little more dappled sun and a little more wind, and we're going to give them about 4 to 6 hours out in the sun. Days 7 and 9, full sun, full wind. If you've got a spot in the middle of your yard where you can set up a table and just let them get it all, send it. But bring them in at night. Don't leave them outside, especially if you're dipping below 20, 30 degrees. Day 10 is, of course, going to be the sleepover. That's where we're going to leave them out overnight and see how they do. If they survive and do well, they're ready to go in the garden. If they don't, you got dead plants, you got to start over. Me personally, I prefer to wait until, because I think each one of these can handle down to 20 degrees. So if it's going to be below 32, I typically don't leave them out overnight. And with the hardening off process, you can actually extend this a lot longer. Take them outside during the day, bring them in at night. It'll be fine. This is just how I do it when it's about a week, 2 weeks before transplant time. And if your cabbage, collar, or kale did end up getting a little taller indoors than what you wanted, don't panic. Brassicas can actually be buried deeper than just the soil pot. So what you do is you dig your hole deep enough that the first set of true leaves is actually at the ground level. And they'll go ahead and add extra roots and thicken up and take just fine. I've actually done this a couple of times, and I actually did it with some cabbage last year where I had gotten dampening off disease. I took them and up potted them and put them all the way up to where they were getting leggy, and it actually rooted all through there, and we ended up getting Brussels sprouts and cabbage out of both of them. Now, Swiss chard is a whole different ball game. You cannot do that with it because it will actually rot the stem. So if your Swiss chard gets leggy, just send it. Don't worry about it. It's going to make it up. And another great thing with Swiss chard is when you go to transplant, if you want to succession sow or succession harvest them, you can actually, when you transplant, come in and pop an extra seed cell or extra seed in between each of your plants through the spacing. And if you lose one, you have a replacement right there. Plus, the ones that you're transplanting will be ready for harvest while the other ones are starting to germ and grow up. And then the following 2 weeks after that, you'll have a harvest from those. Wash, rinse, and repeat. Constant harvest of Swiss chard. Start these together right now, and you'll be harvesting synthetic-free greens while everyone else is just now starting their warm weather crops. And if you're wanting a week-by-week how-to start video, go ahead and check out my calendar over here. It walks you through the entire process of everything we're starting and how to slide your calendar to match your own frost date.